Good evening. Welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Jackie Kemp. I'm a writer and I have a Substack at Letter from Scotland. You can Google that on Substack. So good evening. Um, First, we're going to start with the Ukraine update, day 729. The US is set to unveil hundreds of sanctions, mostly targeting Vladimir Putin's war machine today, the Undersecretary of State, Victoria Nuland, has said, ahead of the second anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine on February the 24th. Further sanctions will also be imposed in response to the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny after being imprisoned by the Kremlin, and to close gaps in existing sanctions. President Biden said he met with Navalny's wife and daughter. The White House said the sanctions were in response to Alexei's death, Russia's repression and aggression, and its brutal and illegal war in Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called the West's reaction to the death of Navalny hysteria and said Western countries had no right to meddle in Russia's affairs. President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the US Congress to approve additional aid for Kiev, saying in an interview broadcast on Thursday that a failure to do so would cost Ukrainian lives. Republican lawmakers in the House of Representatives have stalled the approval of $60 billion in new aid for Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader also warned that the price of helping Kiev now is much lower than the potential cost of confronting Putin later if he succeeds in defeating Ukraine. The International Monetary Fund and Ukraine's government has reached a staff-level agreement paving the way for the release of about $880 million once approved by the IMF's board, the fund said. The agreement came after 6 days of meetings between Ukrainian officials and IMF staff in Warsaw as part of a third review of Ukraine's $15.6 billion four-year extended fund facility agreement. The IMF said Ukraine's progress on the programme was broadly on track and that its economy demonstrated strong growth, declining inflation, and strengthening reserves in 2023, though the outlook for 2024 remained highly uncertain. The UK has added 50 new entities to its Russia sanctions list, with Foreign Secretary David Cameron saying, "Our sanctions are starving Putin of the resources he desperately needs to fund his struggling war." The government claims the targets of the sanctions are people and businesses supplying munitions such as rocket launch systems, missiles, and explosives. UK Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has announced the UK will send 200 more anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. President Biden endorsed Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte to be the next NATO head, according to a US official. Rutte would be succeeding the current NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, a Norwegian national. Alexei Navalny's mother, Mila Navalny, said she has been shown her son's body. Navalnaya has accused Russian investigators of blackmailing her over the funeral of her son, claiming that they're trying to force her to hold a private burial ceremony without mourners. She quoted one of the investigators as saying, "Time is not on your side. Corpses decompose." Israel Gaza latest. At least 29,514 Palestinians have been killed and almost 70,000 injured in Israeli strikes on Gaza since the October 7, 2023, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Israeli airstrikes targeted homes in the southern Gaza Strip today. More than 100 people were killed over the previous day, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. An AFP reporter described heavy airstrikes overnight in the city of Khan Yunis, several kilometers to the north, as well as in Rafah. Médecins Sans Frontières Secretary General Chris Lockyer said, "There's no health system to speak of left in Gaza, and the humanitarian response in Gaza today is an illusion," as he briefed the UN Security Council on Thursday. The UN has warned that any transfer of weapons or ammunition to Israel that would be used in Gaza is likely to violate international humanitarian law and must cease immediately. State officials involved in arms exports may be individually criminally liable for aiding and abetting any war crimes, crimes against humanity, or acts of genocide, UN experts said today. UN experts said they'd seen credible allegations that Palestinian women and girls have been subjected to sexual assault, including rape, while in detention, and are calling for a full investigation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has presented a day-after plan for an official proposal for when the war in Hamas-run Palestinian territory ends. According to the document, Israel would maintain security control over all land west of Jordan including the occupied West Bank and Gaza. In the long-term goals listed, Netanyahu rejected the unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. In his day after plan, Netanyahu also called for shutting down the US Palestinian Refugee Agency and replacing it with other international aid groups. The spokesperson for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Nabil Abu Redina, said that Netanyahu's day after proposal was doomed to fail, as were any Israeli plans to change the geographic and demographic realities in Gaza. Philip Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, warned on Thursday evening that humanitarian relations had reached breaking point. Lazzarini said today no evidence has been shared by Israel with UNRWA regarding Israeli accusations that 12 staff members were involved in the October 7th attack. An Israeli delegation led by the head of the country's overseas intelligence agency is heading to Paris for talks on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, according to Israeli media reports. Egyptian security sources confirmed that Egyptian intelligence chief Abbas Kamel would head to Paris for talks with the Israelis today. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said he plans to approve the construction of more than 3,300 new homes and settlements in the occupied West Bank. He said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant participated in the discussion leading to the decision. The organisers of the Eurovision Song Contest have said they're scrutinising the lyrics of Israel's entry after it was claimed it makes reference to the Hamas attacks on October 7th. The Scottish Government announces a £24.5 million grant to Sumitomo Electrical Industries for a new cable factory at Nigg. Cabinet Secretary for Wellbeing, Economy, Net Zero and Energy Mary McCallan has said Scotland can lead the net zero revolution using its natural resources, world-class universities and entrepreneurial spirit to build the industries of the future. In her first speech since taking over the new portfolio, the Cabinet Secretary outlined her vision for delivering on the economic opportunities of Scotland's transition to net zero, and she expressed a commitment to ensuring the key sectors on which Scotland's economy is currently built continue to grow and thrive. Ms McCallan said the announcement of a £24.5 million grant to secure Japanese company Sumitomo Electric Industries' investment in a new cable factory for the offshore wind centre at Nigg highlighted how net zero went hand in hand with economic growth. The plant will create around 330 jobs and bring £350 million inward investment to Scotland. Addressing business leaders in Edinburgh, Ms McCallan said, "The future of the global economy is green, and I think it's my job and our job collectively to make sure that Scotland can derive the greatest possible benefit from that future. Our green industrial strategy will be a key tool in helping businesses and investors realise the enormous opportunities ahead." Earlier today, Patrick Bukowski interviewed the Cabinet Secretary in Edinburgh.
It's hugely exciting. First of all, I'm delighted that the First Minister has decided for the first time ever to bring together the wellbeing economy, the net zero and the energy brief. It makes perfect sense to me. That is very much the direction that the global economy is facing in. And equally, we've got so many opportunities here in Scotland that we need to be poised to grasp. So I'm delighted to be leading that charge.
Fantastic. One of the big announcements today was the investment for Sumitomo Electric Industries. Could you talk to me about how this investment will impact the Scottish public and why this was the best investment that could be made today?
Yeah, this is a really exciting bit of news, which is that we have agreed to provide £24 million of public money to leverage in £350 million of inward investment from Japanese company Sumitomo, who are going to build this cables factory in Nigg in the Cromarty Firth. As I say, this is a huge vote of confidence in Scotland as a place to invest. It will create hundreds of jobs in the area, and it is a key example of the progress that we're making in developing that really precious opportunity of supply chain connected with Scotland.
As one final question, you mentioned in your speech that the Scottish and UK economy were mired by flat and near zero growth. Despite this, your speech was largely optimistic for the future of Scotland. What's different now, and what's different about the future?
Well, I'm 31 years old, and for the last 15 years, which is all of my adult life, we have gone from one economic crisis to the next, from the crash, through austerity, through Brexit and the pandemic. And despite that, that Scotland has performed well. But moreover, we have a really exciting horizon coming in the future. And now much of that is about supporting the already high-value success stories that we have in Scotland, but equally it's about that era-defining opportunity of the net zero transition and utilising Scotland's energy transition to benefit the people of this country. That is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm determined that we seize it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that was interesting. The next story is about the UK energy price cap, which is set at £1,690 from April. The energy price cap in Great Britain will fall by £238 to £1,690 this spring, thanks to a mild winter and lower gas prices, easing pressure on household finances. It represents a 12.3% reduction from £1,928 in the current quarter. In a boost to the poorest households, Ofgem also confirmed it would equalise standing charges, the set fee paid before any gas or electricity is used, meaning customers with prepayment meters will no longer be charged more for their connection than those on credit or direct debit. The average household will still pay far more for their gas and electricity than before the energy crisis, which started in 2021 and escalated after Russia stopped piping gas to Europe following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The rate is at its lowest since March 2022, but far more than the £1,138 for customers paying by direct debit in the summer of 2021 before the crisis began. Commenting, SNP Energy spokesperson Dave Dugan MP said, "While any reduction to energy bills is welcome, this relatively small change is too little too late for many families who will still be paying around double the pre-crisis rate and will see their standing charge go up even further." He said Scotland is an energy-rich country. It's absurd we're having to pay such extortionate energy bills under Westminster control. Most families receive no help from the UK government this winter, and many are struggling to pay at a time of soaring rents, mortgages and food prices. Mr Dugan described the UK economy as broken and said that neither Rishi Sunak nor Keir Starmer have a credible plan to fix it. He said the SNP is demanding a £400 energy bill rebate for households and meaningful investment in green energy of at least £28 billion a year to benefit the people across Scotland. He accused Sunak and Starmer of taking Scotland's energy wealth to fund nuclear projects in England, putting up to 100,000 jobs at threat. The appeal court refuses Shamima Begum's appeal against removal of British citizenship. Shamima Begum, who left London as a schoolgirl to live under Islamic State, has failed in a fresh attempt to overturn a decision to remove her UK citizenship after the Court of Appeal ruled against her. 3 judges unanimously concluded that the then Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, had the power to set aside concerns that she may have been a victim of child trafficking when she travelled in secret with 2 friends from East London to Syria in 2015. The court also held that Javid had actually acted lawfully, even if it meant Begum, now 24, was effectively stateless, because she theoretically held Bangladeshi citizenship, which applied up to her 21st birthday at the time of his decision in 2019. Dame Sue Carr, the head of the Court of Appeal, said the judges unanimously dismissed Begum's appeal. It could be argued that the decision in Miss Begum's case was harsh. It could also be argued that Miss Begum is the author of her own misfortune, but it's not for the court to agree with or disagree with either point of view. Our only task is to assess whether the deprivation decision was unlawful. We've concluded it was not, and her appeal is dismissed. Begum's solicitor, Daniel Furner, said they would seek to fight on, hinting at a possible appeal to the Supreme Court. Furner said that he had promised Begum and the government that they were not going to stop fighting until she does get justice and she is safely back home. Maya Foa, the director of Reprieve, an NGO that represents the 24 British women detained in northeast Syria, said, "The whole episode shames ministers who would rather bully a child victim of trafficking than acknowledging the UK's responsibilities." Begum is being held in indefinite detention in the Roj refugee camp in northeast Syria, which is controlled by Kurdish forces who captured her early in 2019 at the end of the ground war against IS in Syria and Iraq. MI5 advised Javid that she was a threat to the UK because Begum had aligned with IS by staying in Syria for 4 years. Her lawyer's argument that Begum was rendered de facto stateless because she was not able to go to Bangladesh was irrelevant, because it was trumped by the national security concern. National security exemptions to the public sector equality duty allowed Javid to act as he did, the judges concluded. Next steps. which will include whether Begin wishes to apply for permission to appeal to the UK Supreme Court, will be discussed at a hearing in a week's time. Edinburgh votes to freeze council tax. Edinburgh City Councillors have agreed a balanced budget for 2024 to 25. The council says that millions of pounds will be spent on protecting and improving crucial frontline services, including an additional 27 million for schools and young people and 12.5 million for additional annual investment in roads, pavements, lighting and drainage improvements. Council tax will be frozen and money from a 7% rent rise for council house tenants will be used to tackle the city's housing emergency. This rent increase could raise around 2 billion over 10 years to repair, upgrade and retrofit housing and to build and buy much needed social and affordable homes. In order to balance the budget, councillors also agreed to raise fees and charges such as pay and display parking and to update the council's approach to pensions administered by the Lothian Pension Fund, subject to decisions made by the Pensions Committee and at no impact to employees. Labour-led councils say its 1.5 billion spending programme stays true to the council's core commitments of tackling poverty and inequality, becoming a net zero city by 2030 and getting the basics right for the residents of Edinburgh. Calls for Rishi Sunak to act against Truss for spreading right-wing conspiracy theories. There have been calls from opposition parties for Rishi Sunak to take action against Liz Truss after her appearance alongside far-right commentator Steve Bannon, spreading conspiracy theories about the deep state ousting her from power. During appearances at the Conservative Political Action Conference, the former Prime Minister, who spent only 7 weeks in office in 2022, appeared to be making the case for a comeback and relaunching her career in the UK. She told a right-wing audience in Maryland in the US that her wing of UK Conservatives needed a bigger bazooka to take on the hostile environment in which they were operating, taking aim at institutions that she claimed had thwarted her. Truss also appeared alongside Bannon, a former strategist to Donald Trump, on Real America's Voice, a far-right TV channel, in a hallway outside the main conference auditorium. When Bannon raised recent comments by Nigel Farage warning of a radical Islamic party gaining seats in the British Parliament, Truss replied, "There's going to be a by-election in the next few weeks, and it could be a radical Islamic party win in that by-election, so that is a possibility." The Conservative MP, who is releasing a book called 10 Years to Save the West, argued that the left had infiltrated public and private institutions in the deep state and sabotaged her efforts to cut taxes and reduce the size of government. Truss was forced out of office by her own party after her Chancellor presented a budget of 45 billion in unfunded tax cuts, which unleashed economic chaos, sent interest rates soaring, and caused people to pay more for their mortgages as a result. Search for 15 missing people after a Spanish tower block blaze. The death toll from a devastating fire that tore through a 14-story block of flats in Valencia in eastern Spain has risen to 10, local authorities said, as firefighters continue to search for as many as 15 people reported missing. 4 of the victims were members of the same family, including a father and mother, a 3-year-old girl, and a newborn baby, authorities said, adding that firefighters were still working their way up the floors of the charred building. Experts said the block was covered with flammable cladding, possibly, along with high winds, accounting for the rapid spread of the fire, which broke out on the 4th floor at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday and engulfed the building within 30 minutes. By Friday morning, the entire 138-flat block in the Kemp district was a blackened shell. Firefighters wearing masks and breathing apparatus worked their way through the charred structure. Visiting the scene on Friday, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said residents had lost everything in this terrible fire. He encouraged people to show empathy, affection, and solidarity with the victims and their families and those who don't know what happened to their loved ones. At least 15 people, including 7 firefighters, were injured. 9 remained in hospital on Friday, reportedly all in a stable condition. Survivors, who included Ukrainian refugees, were given emergency accommodation in nearby hotels after what the city's mayor, Maria José Catala, called a sad day for Valencia. About 100 soldiers from Spain's military emergency unit and 40 firefighting vehicles were deployed to the scene, where crews used drones to search the building for bodies and survivors once the flames' ferocity initially had subsided. A 2007 promotional video for the building, which comprises 2 towers linked by what its developers described as a panoramic lift, highlighted the innovative material used to clad the building's exterior, which it said had passed rigorous quality checks. The president of the Valencia College of Architects, Luis Sendra, said when the block was built there weren't restrictions on the type of cladding material, nor the terrace furniture. The design of the block also led to a chimney effect, he said. Esther Cujadas, an industrial engineer who once inspected the building, said the fire had spread so rapidly because the block, completed in 2009, was covered in highly combustible polyurethane cladding. European regulations on cladding materials were upgraded after the 2017 Grenfell disaster. Germany legalizes possession of cannabis for personal use. The German parliament has passed a law allowing individuals and voluntary associations to grow and hold limited quantities of cannabis, making it the latest in a small group of countries and jurisdictions to legalize the drug, at least in part. The law passed by Chancellor Olaf Scholz's ruling three-party coalition legalizes cultivating up to 3 plants for private consumption, the possession of 50 grams of cannabis at one time at home and 25 grams in public. It follows a heated debate about the pros and cons of allowing easier access to the drug. Opening the debate, Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said, "We have two goals, to crack down on the black market and improve protection of children and young people." About 7 million Germans are estimated to regularly use cannabis. The government has said previously that many users rely on the drug for medicinal reasons and that the new law will improve the quality of cannabis consumed by increasing numbers of young people. Doctors against the law change have warned it will endanger the health of young people by making the drug more accessible and increasing the risk of addiction. The coalition of the Social Democrats, Greens, and the pro-business FDP agreed in November to push on with the change, having included it in their coalition agreement on sharing power. Adults will be permitted to grow up to 3 plants and possess small amounts of cannabis from April the 1st, and 3 months later it will also be available in licensed not-for-profit clubs established to grow and distribute the cannabis plants. Cannabis consumption for under 18s will continue to be forbidden. The law change makes Germany the third European Union member to legalise cannabis for personal use after Malta and Luxembourg. The Scottish Government publishes legislation on the sale and use of single-use vapes. A ban on the sale and supply of single-use vapes in Scotland is due to come into effect on the 1st of April 2025 under proposed legislation published today. The move takes forward the recommendation to ban single-use vapes from a consultation on creating a smoke-free generation and tackling youth vaping, which ran across Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland last year. The draft legislation, which is open for consultation until March the 8th, is being taken forward in Scotland using powers under the Environmental Protection Act 1990. And while separate legislation on banning the sale and supply of single-use vapes will need to be introduced by each nation, the governments have worked together to agree on a date for when the ban will come into force to provide certainty for businesses and consumers. Circular Economic Minister Lorna Slater said, "Legislating to ban the sale and supply of single-use vapes fulfills a programme for government commitment to reducing vaping among non-smokers and young people and to take action to tackle their environmental impact." The public consultation demonstrated that there is strong support for tougher action on vaping. From causing fires in waste facilities to more than 26 million disposable vapes being consumed and thrown away in Scotland in the past year, single-use vapes are a threat to our environment as well as to our public health. The Scottish Government paid $280 million to carers since the launch of Carers Allowance Supplement. New figures show that Carers Allowance Supplement, a benefit only available in Scotland, has delivered only 1 million payments to unpaid carers. Almost $280 million has been paid to over 150,000 carers in Scotland since Carers Allowance Supplement was introduced in September 2018. The benefit, one of 7 only available in Scotland, was created to recognise the vital role of unpaid carers. Eligible carers get payments twice a year, normally in June and December. In the 2023 to 24 financial year, each payment was £270. Carers Allowance Supplement is paid automatically to people who are getting carers allowance or carer support payment on a particular date. Care support payment paid by the Social Security Scotland was introduced in 3 local authority areas in November last year. It's replacing carers allowance from the Department of Work and Pensions in Scotland and will be rolled out across the country in autumn 2024. Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville said, "Unpaid carers make a significant contribution to society, often at the expense of their own health and well-being. The Scottish Government introduced Carers Allowance Supplement to recognise his contribution. I'm pleased we've now made our over 1 millionth payment and have given carers in Scotland almost 280 million of additional support. The Scottish Government recognises the pressure the cost of living crisis has placed on household budgets, which is why we continue to allocate around 3 billion a year to policies that tackle poverty and protect people as far as possible. University of Glasgow honorary degree for WHO's Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. The University of Glasgow is awarding an honorary degree to the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, for his inspirational and global leadership. Dr. Tedros is being recognized for his dedication to improving health conditions across the world and challenging nations to raise ambitions to boost the well-being of every citizen on the planet. Elected Director General in 2017, Dr. Tedros was the first person from the African region to lead WHO, having previously held senior positions at several global health organizations. Dr. Tedros will give a keynote speech focusing on future health challenges when he receives his honorary degree at a special ceremony in the University of Glasgow's Bute Hall on the 5th of March 2024. Professor Sir Anton Muscatelli, Principal and Vice-Chancellor, University of Glasgow, said, "I'm really delighted to welcome Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus to Glasgow and to hear his keynote speech on the future global health challenges we might face. In awarding this honorary degree, we are recognizing the exceptional impact Dr. Tedros has made as Director General of the World Health Organization in improving global health, expanding universal health coverage, and responding to global health emergencies. We are also proud to celebrate the impact he's made throughout his career to promote community health initiatives and tackle the prevalence of infectious and non-communicable diseases. Glasgow has been at the cutting edge of innovation in medicine, life sciences, and public health for centuries, from the invention of beta blockers, and ultrasound in medicine, to our rapid response to COVID-19, which saw the Glasgow Lighthouse Lab process over 31 million cumulative tests through the pandemic. It is therefore fitting that we confer this honorary degree upon Dr. Tedros in recognition of his role as a global health visionary and welcome him to our community of world changers. Born in the Eritrean city of Asmara, Dr. Tedros graduated from the University of Asmara with a Bachelor of Biology before earning a Master of Science in Immunology of Infectious Diseases from the University of London, a Doctorate of Philosophy in Community Health from the University of Nottingham, and an honorary fellowship from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Prior to his role at WHO, Dr. Tedros held leadership positions as chair of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria, chair of the Rollback Malaria Partnership, and co-chair of the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health Board. Dr. Tedros was the first non-American to be awarded the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Humanitarian Award in 2011, recognizing his contribution to public health. Well, that's it for this evening. Before I go, I just want to remind you that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who's donated and to everyone who's signed up to make a regularly monthly payment, thank you. Our programmes will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We're now just under £1,000 short of our £10,000 target. Although the pressure has been eased, we really need to raise that last £1,000 immediately so we can pay our bills and focus on securing the future of independent broadcasting for Scotland by growing our subscriber base and regular funding. Thank you for watching and good night.